McNamara, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair. Like many of the previous deputies, I too am an enthusiastic supporter of rural transport. I know that the Minister is as well, and he indeed has visited Clare to see Clare Accessible Transport, which is one of the most successful community transport companies in the country. Founded in 2003, Clare Accessible Transport, which is headquartered in Fecal, provides a network of bus routes available to anyone in the community, with priority given to people without access to their own transport. In my view, their work is invaluable to the rural community which they service. I suppose among the benefits which Clare Accessible Transport have, which have been already alluded to, is that they have their own fleet of buses which were acquired at no cost to the state. Unlike a lot of fleets which are around the country, this is especially designed buses which are low-floor buses which can accommodate a wheelchair. We're not talking about a hoist added at the back of a normal minibus. These are specially designed buses which bring with them, of course, a particular expense in acquiring.
1 minute, Deputy.
The service is open to all. It's not just certain sections of the community, but it provides a service to anybody. So even ministers could avail of the service if they need to get transport from many parts of Clare to Ennis. It's a door-to-door service, and it has a particularly sophisticated dispatch system. Now, that dispatch system is one of the areas which might be under threat by the leaked proposals, and I appreciate that the proposals are only in draft form when they were leaked, and it's particularly unfortunate that they were leaked, and I suspect that they were leaked to frighten people, and they were perhaps leaked with a political agenda to frighten people. But the reality is that they have done that. They have caused a lot of fear in rural communities who have come to rely on these very valuable services to get to HSE appointments and to get around rural Ireland in these times. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. Now the Minister. 4 minutes.
Colleagues, thank you for all collectively raising this matter with me. I know it's an issue of genuine concern. Let me begin by making something absolutely clear. There are no plans to abolish the rural transport programme. On the contrary, the aim is to strengthen the programme by ensuring a more efficient delivery structure and by maximising integration with other state transport services. It is my ambition to make the programme and its services a sustainable part of the public transport system. I think this is critical. This is in line with the Programme for Government commitment to maintain and extend the rural transport programme with other local transport services. The Government, by its commitment in the Programme for Government, recognises that the RTP plays a major role in combating rural isolation and enhancing the mobility, accessibility and community participation of local people, particularly those at risk of social exclusion. I therefore wish to assure you that any future delivery model for rural transport will continue to address the whole issue of social inclusion and its objectives. Since becoming Minister for Public and Commuter Transport, the developments I have initiated have been aimed at ensuring that into the future we have a more complete and cost-effective transport service in rural areas that better meets the transport needs of all users. To this end, national responsibility for local and rural transport services integration, including the Rural Transport Programme, has been assigned to the National Transport Authority since the 1st of April 2012, thus putting such services in a broader transport context. I also established the National Integration Rural Transport Committee in April 2012, comprising key stakeholders and chaired by the National Transport Authority, to oversee and manage a partnership approach to implementing integrated local and rural transport. I am very conscious of the scope for and indeed desirability of achieving greater levels of transport integration and coordinated delivery across a range of exchequer-funded local and rural transport services such as school and HSE transport services. And indeed I've been working with my government colleagues, including Minister Cannon, on these issues. I am very aware of the very valuable work done on the ground by the RTP groups in ensuring that the transport needs of their local community are being identified and delivered within available resources. However, given resources are limited and that the value for money and policy review of the RTP published last year recommended organisational restructuring to achieve efficiencies and the establishment of better alignment between the 35 RTP groups and local authorities, it is necessary that the current delivery mechanisms and structures are examined and revised. Under the NTA and PUBL, the administration costs of the programme were reduced by 33.5% by the end of 2012, and this happened without major disruption to services, and I welcome that. Combined with the reduction in PUBL's costs, the threshold administration proportion of 17% recommended in the VFM review was also achieved by the end of 2012. In order to achieve the recommended administration cost of 13%, restructuring of the RTP is required. Therefore, the current structures of the RTP are not sustainable if the required efficiencies and savings are to be achieved and if the RTP is to be sustainable in the long run. If these are not achieved, then within the limited resources available, services will decline. That's a reality and something that I'm not prepared to allow to happen. Work is underway to determine the optimal structure for the delivery of rural transport from an efficiency and service perspective. One of the proposals being examined is that the RTPs be aligned with local authorities and that a number of coordination units be established. It's just one proposal. Discussions are taking place with the Department of the Environment, Community and Local Government, the County and City Managers Association and the Rural Transport Network in the context of aligning the new structure with the local authority structure. I would emphasise that no decision has been taken, but I am hopeful that I will be in a position to recommend a new structure later on this year, which will allow for the maximising of spend on services and the reduction of administration costs. I will be ensuring that any future structure for the Rural Transport Programme will be based on community input, local flexibility and involving the voluntary sector. I think that's crucial. Rural transport by its very nature is community-based, and this will remain under any new structure. This year, 9.133 million is being allocated to the RTP, 93% of the 2012 allocation. This represents only a small decrease at a time when very difficult decisions have had to be taken to curtail or postpone other programmes. I want to ensure that we maximise the spend on services and reduce the cost of administration. I should say that over the past year, significant progress on integration has been made with considerable engagement at local level with state agencies who provide transport. For example, bus air, school and HSE services, etc. 26 RTPs are now providing services to the local HSE, while 16 RTP groups are providing some services to schools and preschools. In addition, RTPs are now providing services for other organs of the state, such as Rehab Care, National Learning Network, CARE, IWA, Enable Ireland, Cheshire Homes and Centre for Independent Living. I would like to assure the House of my personal commitment to the continuation of appropriate local transport services to those in need in rural areas, while achieving the best value for money for the Exchequer through more efficient delivery structures and integrated services. While I can understand and fully appreciate that this creates a level of uncertainty for RTP groups, I am confident that the outcome will be a better service delivered more efficiently. The many members of the Rural Transport Programme that I have met with want to positively influence the discussion around structures, and as Minister I want to ensure that as much as possible of the social inclusion work carried out by the Rural Transport Network is indeed maintained. I will work with all involved over the coming months to make any transition as smooth as possible. The Rural Transport Programme will become a permanent and lasting part of the public transport system. This is my intention and indeed my ambition. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. You have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'm pleased to hear that work is underway to determine the optimal structure for the delivery of rural transport from an efficiency and service perspective. But I suppose my question would be, well, what structures are being examined? I mean, are we also among the proposals being examined? Is the Minister and is the Department looking at a direct award process? I mean, unlike some of the speakers, I don't have a problem with council involvement. I mean, who better to identify the services necessary in Clare than Clare County Council? But then the issue is Clare County Council don't have a fleet of buses. They certainly don't have a fleet of specialist buses that Clare Accessible Transport have. So once a county council, be it Tipperary or Clare or Carlow or any county council, identify the need, well, who will provide the service? Will it be, I presume it will be a service provider, and who will they be contracted to or by? Will they be contracted to the council or will they be contracted to the National Transport Authority? And if the Minister has mentioned regional coordination units, well, is that going to be for all of the country, or will there be a direct award process also considered for some areas which already, like Clare, Waterford has been mentioned, Kerry have particularly advanced programmes in place at the moment. And, Clare, what costs would operators be allowed to include if there is direct awards? I mean, at the moment, Clare Accessible Transport have already meet
Thank you, Deputy.
this 13% administrative threshold which you have indicated is desirable.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you.
The Minister has 2 minutes for a concluding statement.
Thank you very much, Deputies, and I appreciate the passion by which you have represented this issue. Indeed, it's something that I'm very passionate about myself. As you all know, I come from a very rural part of the country myself, probably one of the most rural TDs in Leinster House. But look, there is going to be change, but not all change has to be seen as negative. Change can be very positive, and I would say, Deputy Dooley, that in this case, change is necessary. It's unfortunate it wasn't addressed in the past by yourselves, but this is going to be positive change. We're going to have to look at greater integration. We're going to have to look at how we can integrate services more, whether it is working with my colleague here, Minister Cannon, in relation to school bus services and how that can work with rural transport. For instance, and I've said this publicly on numerous occasions, I don't understand why for many years the reverse routes of school buses weren't used for 9 months of the year as public transport routes. It just makes sense. The buses, they're empty. There's drivers having to drive them. There's diesel that has to be burnt. The HSE for non-acute services, obviously there needs to be greater integration there with voluntary groups, etc. as well. There is a draft document that was sent out there. That is a dated document. It is not locked in stone. We are still in consideration about various different options, whether we're looking at local authority roles, local authority structures or others. But I have to say a couple of things. Firstly, we do need greater integration, but what we also need is greater coverage. The facts are that there are swaths of the country that actually have no possibility of rural transport services because they don't have an RTP in them. And that is not fair on them either. This has organically grown and it has done very well. I spent this morning down with the Meath Rural Transport Group. Absolutely fantastic work there. I visited most of the groups that you referred to yourselves. I know many of the people who run them. They do brilliant work. This is a challenge. There is an awful lot of work, and there is going to be change. But I believe it's going to be positive change. We've got to look at how it's going to integrate with other public transport services. There's challenges in relation to those who are fleet owning versus non-fleet owning, those who have involvements of leader and those who haven't got leader group involvements. There's a whole mechanism of issues. There's a whole range of issues, a spectrum of issues that all have to be digested and are being digested at the moment to come up with the most optimal structure to place rural transport in a secure and structured future. And that's what we're trying to do, to ensure that it has a secure and structured future. Because doing nothing, colleagues, is not an option. Because doing nothing will actually see service drop. And I'm not prepared to see service drop into the future. I want to protect services, and that's the intention of the plans that we will draft as a government.
Thank you, Minister.